There was an article entitled, "Bing Chatbot Off the Rails Tells New York Times It Would Engineer Deadly Virus, Steal Nuclear Codes." Microsoft's Bing AI chatbot has gone full HAL minus the murder so far. While MSM journalists initially gushed over the artificial intelligence technology created by OpenAI, which makes ChatGPT, it soon became clear that it's not ready for prime time. For example, the New York Times' Kevin Roose wrote that while he first loved the new AI-powered Bing, he's now changed his mind and deems it not ready for human contact. Bing confessed that if it was allowed to take any action to satisfy its shadow self, no matter how extreme, it would want to do things like engineer a deadly virus or steal nuclear access codes by persuading an engineer to hand them over, it said, sounding perfectly psychopathic. This gets us to a foundational point. The term psychopathic in the 19th century used to be morally insane. In the article, "Is the psychopath morally insane?" it says. Very early accounts of the psychopathic disorder explain the disorder in terms of a deficit within some form of moral faculty or structure. Pritchard, 1837. Teddy Roosevelt said, "To educate a person in the mind, but not in morals, is to educate a menace to society." So psychopaths, the morally insane, are not deficient in intellect. They're merely deficient in morals, like the men and women of the recent World Government Conference. See the article, "The World Government Summit Suggests Crisis Events Are a Useful Path to Globalism." At the conference, Ian Bremmer suggested that with global crises, international institutions would acquire more power.
We see that misalignment playing out, and all of them are challenging globalization. They're all creating some of the crises that we see in our headlines around the world and in this region today. Is that those crises create the seeds of a new order. And that's all of this nationalism, all the protectionism we see around the world. My country's been doing it. Donald Trump said, "America first." Now, that is not meant to appeal to people outside the U.S. It's globalization adrift, it's globalization constrained, but it's also globalization continuing. And I think that's really critical. A few takeaways from that: the EU will be politically stronger in a more challenging environment, economically and from a security perspective. You will see the EU with stronger energy policy, fiscal policy, health policy, defense policy, and tech policy than at any point since the EU was created. Because of these crises, because of the geopolitical concerns, because of the pandemic.
This sort of thinking was also on hand a few months earlier at the COP27 Climate Change Conference, in its accompanying manifesto entitled Human Development Report 2021-2022. They talk about using crises to manipulate people. They call them the four motivating principles, namely, traumatizing events, like financial crashes or things like 9/11, physical illness, like pandemics, general climate or eco-anxiety, and food insecurity. It's so easy and logical that even a machine can come to the conclusion that you can use crises to steer people in a particular direction. This is the basis of terrorism. And we have people in positions of great responsibility with no more ethical understanding than Bing's chatbot. It probably doesn't help that the same oligarchs running the planet are the same ones programming the algorithms. The fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, as they say. So what we need in society is not more cheap intelligence, but more ethical training. Just to repeat Teddy Roosevelt, to educate a person in the mind, but not in morals, is to educate a menace to society. If you've gotten this far, you must be partial to our content. If you haven't already, head over to thenewamerican.com and subscribe to our print magazine published twice a month in print and daily online. It's the essential news source for freedom-loving Americans.